Welcome to Stayf Draws. I'm Stayf, a Dutch illustrator and animator, and I already made a video about the character design of Captain Dodo. It's this character, and I'm going to ink it in vectors. And usually I use Adobe Illustrator, but I think they will discontinue that app because when you open it, you get a pop-up that will redirect you to Adobe Fresco. And in Adobe Fresco, you can also ink in vectors. You can also use it to do pixel art, but also ink in vectors. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to ink the Captain Dodo character and also do the coloring of Captain Dodo. So I'm first going to open up Adobe Fresco. And it is basically the same as Adobe Draw or Adobe Sketch, Photoshop Sketch. Only difference is that you can work in vectors and also with pixel art. So I'm first going to make a new canvas or a new file I can work in. So I'm choosing square. And here it is a little bit different. On the left side you have the toolbar, and in Adobe Draw you could upload your image in the layers panel, but now it's on the left side. And there you press on photos and then you can import your image. And this is the sketch of Captain Dodo. What I'm now going to do is press done. Then press on this little icon, and these are the settings of your layer. So you can set it, the blend mode you can change, but I'm just going to leave it to normal. And I just want to change the opacity. So with the slider, you can make it a little bit lighter. I'm going to drag this layer on top. And you have to be careful because now it is a group, and they changed the settings. If you want to do an undo, you just tap with 2 fingers. So I select the layer with the image of the sketch and then drag it underneath. Now the layer is selected, you have different options of drawing, and on the left side you first see all the pixel brushes, and these are the live brushes, and underneath that the third one are the vector brushes. And you have a variety of brushes, and I'm just going to use the basic velocity taper. Here you can set the color. It's the same if you're used to working in Adobe Draw, that's about the same. There's only this little circle, and that's an interesting one because when you're drawing and tap on the circle, it will become an eraser with the same brush you're working with. So that's a handy little feature in Adobe Fresco. I'm just going to choose the brush, and there are some more options here. Of course, you can change the size of your brush, and here are some more settings you can change. So the roundness and pressure dynamics, you can turn it on and off. And here's a smoothing, which is very handy. So first I need to choose the point I want to ink with. And I'm just going to zoom in, just try out how it works. And you can change the settings of your smoothing, because if you set it to 100% and you want to make a quick gesture, then it becomes slower. So I'm just going to set it to around 60%. And with inking, it's always best to not do everything in one go, because when you do that, you get bit of ugly, and if you keep your Apple Pencil on the canvas, it will create thicker strokes, and you don't want that. So what I do is just ink in small strokes, and then you can keep it loose. Also with inking, you're also inking a bit of the shadows. So you have to figure out before you start to ink a character where the light is coming from. And usually the lines below are thicker than lines up. And you can also change and rotate, you know, when you're inking, you have a natural flow of your pen. If you're inking in the wrong direction, you know, you don't have that much control. So I'm always inking from right to left. And, you know, sometimes it has to be in one flow. And here's a bit of a jitter, so maybe I can change the smoothing. I want a nice thick and thin lines. And when you have smoothing on, you know, it becomes a bit slower, so you have to play around with the settings, you know. I don't like that. And I've made a little mistake here. And you can change that. You know, you can use the eraser, and this is the eraser, but you can also, you know, use the brush you're working with and then tap on this little circle, and then it will react as an eraser. And circles are always, you know, hard to ink, and sometimes you do it in 2 passes. So you start out here and pick it up here. And there's also a paint bucket. So if you're, you know, want to fill out bigger shapes, black shapes, you can just get the bucket and then fill your shape. But it needs to be closed. So this isn't closed yet. Later on I want to fill, and this is I had the same problem in Adobe Draw, you know, when you want to do a small dot, sometimes it gets very fat and then you get a circle like this. So I don't know how to, you know, get around that. Because it's too fat. And I'm gonna ink the bandana. I always like to keep it, you know, smooth. This is a shape that goes over the other shape of the bandana. This is the little fold. And this I drew, you know, a little bit too much, so I can erase it again by pressing on the little circle. And with inking, you know, you have to keep breathing, because when you hold your breath, you know, you start to lose your flow. And sometimes, you know, you just want to do it in one flow or in one go. Because this is the hat. And sometimes you want sharper edges, and then it's better, you know, to break up the inking and don't do it in one go. Adobe Fresco is still a little bit buggy, so sometimes it crashes. I hope they will fix it soon. And you know, you can only use it when you have Adobe Creative Cloud. And I already have Adobe Creative Cloud because I'm using Photoshop and Audition and a lot of other programs. But otherwise it can be, you know, a little bit much. But it has a nice workflow with Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop, so that you, when you're finished with this drawing, it will add it to your Adobe Creative Cloud, and then you can open it straight into Illustrator and work on it again. I always want to, you know, keep the flow of the drawing. And I don't like Adobe Illustrator because I'm more of, I like to draw and see what I'm drawing instead of using these Bezier curves and build up your character like that. And this is a little bit more organic. So that's why I like Adobe Draw and now Adobe Fresco, you know, to do my inking. And especially if you have to, you know, work in vectors, then this is a great app to work in. And I'm just going to time lapse the rest of the inking, and after that we're going to color it. Now I'm done with inking the character, and now I want to color it. And you can do that, you know, on the same layer, but just to be sure, I make a duplicate of this layer. So when you press on the layer, you get a new menu, and then you can, you know, select duplicate layer. And I'm just going to hide the original layer. I'm just going to select this. And in order to fill out colors in vectors, all the shapes need to be closed. So I'm first going to check, you know, if everything is closed. So I can really zoom in and just see if everything is closed. Another way of checking it is just by dropping in a color. I'm first going to do the beak. So select the color from the color wheel and just have to think of some colors. Maybe a little bit purple gray. And you can use the paint bucket. And I want a darker color for this part. And I'm just going to add a line here. I have to select the brush again. And then you can, you know, use the bucket to fill the shape. And in this way you can, easily color a vector drawing in Adobe Fresco. So it's very important, if you're using the paint buckets, that you close all your shapes. Otherwise you will, color in things you don't want. What I'm first going to do is select a shape, and I'm gonna make a new layer because I want a circle underneath the entire character. And you can use shapes. It's a little bit different because with the other shapes, you could, draw around it. And well, maybe you can, but I'm not quite sure how this exactly works. So you have to set it to fill, and then it will fill with the selected color. And now you can choose between pixels or vector, and I want the entire illustration to be in vectors, so I choose vector. So now I have a nice backdrop, and select and deselect, otherwise everything will be selected in the circle. I want to work on the breast, so now I can see if there are some gaps in my illustration. And I need to fix the color of Captain Dodo, because here are some leaks, I think. I'm gonna fill this with pure white. So this is the flat coloring, and what I sometimes do is some kind of cartoon shading, and you can do that with colors within the layer, but I want to keep a little bit more control. So if you want to change the colors later on, then you have to change everything else. So I'm gonna create a new layer and just gonna select a gray. And I'm gonna set this layer, and you have to select the properties, and here you can change it to multiply. So when I now paint inside it, it will be on top of the layer, and then you can add some shading to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to make another top layer because there needs to be some writing on his hat. It's WOC. Make a smaller and I also want to do some cross hatching. And now you can do that more easily because all the shapes are filled. And I want to do it in the belt, and just gonna select not pure black but a darker brown color. And this way you can, add some cool effects. Maybe here in his hat as well. And when you have finished your drawing, and if you have an Adobe Creative Cloud, you can save it. And you can do that by pressing on this little icon. If you do a quick export, it will do a snapshot and it will be in pixels, but I want to import it into Illustrator on my desktop. So I'm going to choose export as a PDF, and then it will export this image as a PDF with vectors in it. And I'm going to send this to my computer. And now I can open it in Illustrator and, do a lot of different things with it and prepare it for print. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, because each time I upload a new video, you get a notification. Drawing is fun and practice makes perfect. See you next time. Doodles!